Good evening, Council. We'd like to call the meeting to order for March 9. It's a regular council meeting. And we'd like to start with a moment of reflection before we get into the approval of the agenda. So we'll start with that moment of reflection now. All right, for the approval of the agendas, we have two consent agenda, and I believe there's been request already to pull the town of Tabor request into the regular portion of the meeting. Correct.
Yes, if we could do that, please.
And any other questions, comments on the consent agenda? Councillor Patience?
Just one, if I might, just on the checklisting, MDT Sporting Goods for 90,000. What would that be? I should maybe know this, but
That's a deposit back on the.
good call. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Otherwise, a motion to approve the consent agenda while pulling the one item. Councillor Fox makes the motion. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. The regular meeting agenda, we have the one additional item, and as far as I know, no other additional items. Call for a motion to approve the regular meeting agenda with the one addition from the consent agenda. Councillor Patience makes the motion. We'll call it the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. And for the good of council, does anyone have something they wish to share with the whole council? It's been, feels like a lot longer than 2 weeks, but it's still only been 2 weeks, right? February was a short month. Yes, that's right. Councillor Monteith?
Just a reminder that one of our citizens has been elected to the Lethbridge Sports Hall of Fame, Dr. Poitras, so congratulations to him.
That is true. And congratulations to your dad, I know. Yeah. Any other comments? I know the Chamber of Commerce had their awards banquets, and that was very good to attend. See a lot of the community businesses and citizens out, and the awards handed out, which I think were all very, very well deserved, and appreciated being able to share that evening with the Chamber. Councillor Poitras.
Yeah, just a couple upcoming events. Got to pull up my calendar. So it was part of our consent agenda, but coming up on March 27th is the Empress Theater grand reopening. It is a event that is open to the public. We'll have a short ceremony followed by the unveiling of the donor wall, as well as some entertainment and refreshments that evening. So March 27th at 7 p.m. Everybody's invited. Also coming up on March 19th is the Chamber of Commerce AGM. We have a few vacancies available on the Chamber board, so if anybody is willing to volunteer and become part of the Chamber of Commerce board, we very much would appreciate those volunteers. So they can contact the Chamber office if they're interested in the application process. And that's it.
All right, Councillor Patience.
Yeah, I guess first I got to apologize. I forgot that our council reports are due on the first meeting of the month, so you'll get that for the next one, I guess, Miranda. And shout out to the theater. Not the first time I've seen Valdi, but almost full house, or was a full house on Saturday night, and a great show by a classic Canadian musician. So good time was held by all. Yeah, good way to show off the new theater, and yeah, so kudos.
All right, any other comments for the good of council? Events upcoming? Oh, I was gonna highlight, we did have a good supper meeting with the MD Willow Creek last week Monday. It was appreciated, so shout out to the MD Willow Creek for the conversations and look forward to more discussions. All right, so if there's no other, we'll move on to delegations tonight, of which we have one, and we'd like to welcome our acting commander Chad Hurdle to council tonight to present the quarterly report, and we look forward to hearing from you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'll try to keep this short and sweet because you can read a lot of it. So priority number one was our crime reduction category. We've done really well on this. We've done the warrant roundups. I've been trying to keep up with the weekly media releases when I'm not too busy on a Monday. Sometimes I forget, so it's bi-weekly media releases for that one. We've done a ton of curfew checks, which have resulted in a bunch of breaches, which I'll get to later. The enhanced road safety ones, we've hit all our goals in that. We've already surpassed it for the year with this quarter coming up for an end. Police visibility, still working on pushing guys to the detachment, but we have been, the last 3 months has been super busy. So there's a lot of paperwork behind the scenes that hasn't been, that the public can't see. Trying to get the school visits out there, and we're going to probably, instead of just doing school presentations, is maybe try to work on some community presentations as well for like senior fraud and other things like that, instead of just focusing on one area when there's a lot more knowledge we could give to the public. We did a bunch of consultations. I've listed those for public relations and all the events that we did all throughout November and December. And I'll get to our staffing category. So we have 7 positions. We have 6 working. I got 1 position that's vacant, which is the sergeant. I spoke to him yesterday. He's in the process of trying to sell his house. So once that's sold, he'll be coming here and I'll update everyone on that. I also, since I've done this report, I'm down a member due to a medical emergency for a couple months. However, there's a new unit out called the relief unit. So I reached out to them right away, letting them know the concerns for visibility and all that. And I was able to get a relief member from the end of March until the end of August. So you're not going to see any interruptions in any policing services there. You're just going to see different people come in because they come in, they work 8 days and they go out. So it'll be a different person coming in. Sometimes the same one will rotate back in. As far as some of the stats, I was looking through them. Assaults have increased. There's nothing that's outside of like, it's nobody being attacked or anything like that. We've got an increase in population. Some of the assaults are the exact same people. It's a repeat thing on that circumstance there. Mischiefs have increased under the other category, and that other category would be mischief, enjoyment to property. So that's someone calling in saying, I want this person removed, they're intoxicated or something like that. It's not necessarily damage. A lot of that is also domestic violence related. They want their spouse removed, so we go in and we remove them, and it goes from there. Fail to comply breaches over the last 5 years are up 600%, which is, in my opinion, a very good thing, because that means my guys are out there and they're knocking on the doors and they're charging at them for the fail to comply. And some of our repeat offenders have spent some significant time in jail this year, so that's great for the community. And then the other categories are false 911 calls have gone up quite a bit, and that would be, there was one residence in town that had a line malfunction, so it was calling 3 to 4 times a day. So they had to reach out to TELUS to take care of that. And our mental health has gone up, and that's also probably because I'm rescoring the files every time it's a mental health file and we use a Form 10 on the individual. I score the Form 10, so it's capturing that category to show how many people that are being transported under a police Form 10. I think that is the majority of the information.
Okay, very good. I think for the new council members, this is what, second time we've done a quarterly? Maybe the first, not 100% sure. Yeah, typically we go through the stats not in line by line, but more highlights to try to understand some of the trends. If anyone has any questions for our acting commander, Chad, please feel free. Councilor Orr.
Yeah, if I could ask a question, and it relates to an item later in the agenda, our community safety survey. There's, a level of concern that people have about being out at night. And so I was looking at this report and then being mindful of that level of concern that some members of the community feel. And I'm looking back at your report and trying to get a sense for, I don't want to say justification, but what level of concern there is with respect to danger at night. I looked at the assault. Maybe I can just ask it this way. Do you see in all of the stats that you have that, someone walking home at night, are they at any kind of increased risk at that time based on the facts as this historical record that you have?
No, like all the assaults in our category, they're all people that are known to each other. It's not a random stranger violence thing. They're every assault file that I've reviewed over the last several years, it's all known. It's usually relationship related, or it's friends that have had a fallout, stuff like that. It's all known to each other.
And then maybe just a follow-up with respect to theft under 5,000, for example. Do you see, public lighting as somehow being a way to prevent some of those types of thefts? And I guess what I'm asking is, are those happening on people's property where
Yeah, lighting would
private
be a
lighting?
thing. Like if you ever do, like I've had what's called CEPTED, that community prevention through environmental design, come into some of the businesses in the past. So like any lighting's always going to be better because people don't want to be seen, especially with cameras and stuff out. So if people have lighting at their property, that's going to deter crime. And if you have visible cameras, that also deter crimes. And some of our theft under 5,000 has gone up too because the John at Independence started to report it a lot more because he's reporting it even if he doesn't want them charged and we're just doing a trespass act. Then we have the information documented. So we're like, okay, this is the person that's causing a problem here.
Yeah, I can appreciate that lighting helps.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of lighting that we as a municipality, we do street lighting. We don't do lighting on private property.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering about whether street lighting would somehow.
Street lighting would always be a benefit. The better the lights are to see an area, the less chance you have of someone wanting to do something. But I don't know if there's any specific areas where street lighting's been named as a concern because I haven't seen the community survey.
Okay, thanks.
Did you have any comments on that, Lisa? On the lighting, on the community? It's on your report, yeah. Any other questions regarding the presentation update? Councilor Monteith first.
Are the sheriffs coming in as often as they did before in terms of speeding on the one-way and whatever? I know I've seen them once, but I'm just wondering if we're still doing the same thing as was done before.
It's still open for them to come in, but we've noticed we haven't seen them as much frequently either. So I don't know where that is because that's outside my control for them, but we've already told them they have free invitation to come to the community at any time and enforce the speeding, especially on the one-ways.
Councilor Patience.
Thanks. I actually have two questions. One is about the mischief other. What does that entail? Because I noticed the numbers are up like almost.
So that's like when I said mischief other, it's usually obstruction, enjoyment of property. So say you're at someone's house, you're drunk, you're causing problems, you don't want to leave. So it's something like that. So we're going to come in, ask you to leave, and then if you don't leave, you might get removed.
So why would you think it's up so high? Is that just?
You've got a higher population now and more people are phoning to have people removed because sometimes people aren't from here. They want to ride, so you just get a phone call, and I've rescored a lot of those files. Used to be scored as assistance to general public. Well, it's not. The individual that had a problem in their residence, their enjoyment of their personal property was obstructed. So I've rescored the files because if you have more scoring of criminal files, the greater the chance we're going to have to get an additional member here to show what's actually going on.
Understood. And I've had a few people, I don't want to say a lot, but 3 different individuals have approached me, questioning me about regulations surrounding the use of jake brakes on the highway going through town. And I know I brought this up with Anthony, but I'm not sure whose jurisdiction that would be to enforce and what it would take. Is that a
Commercial vehicle enforcement would be the best because they would have the best knowledge on that, and I can reach out to them to see if they're still around to look into that.
So that's not a commonality across the province? That's a local bylaw required to?
It's usually a bylaw there'll be a sign coming into a community saying no braking and stuff like that.
Yeah, we used to have them and I brought that up, but I haven't seen them for a very long time, so I don't know. Council changed it or, anyway, I thought I'd ask, I committed to
Nothing's
ask.
been changed. I thought there was still a sign, but I think you see a sign going into every community, but who enforces it, I don't know. Yeah, and I don't know. I've never heard of anyone getting a ticket for jake brakes.
Yeah, and I've never in 17 years have had a call for someone for braking to even go question someone on it.
I think it's probably deemed common respect, but how
Yeah.
it gets enforced, I don't know.
Well, we can enforce it, commercial vehicle can enforce it, your Alberta sheriffs could enforce it. It would just be a matter of stopping the right offending vehicle for it.
Well, it's harder to identify in
Yeah.
some ways too, because it's
You'd have to get the
Okay.
license plate and all the correct information to be able to
you
do
have
the,
to have your
follow-up.
windows open and knowing they're actually doing it.
yeah.
Yeah, I just have had 3 individuals that live
Yeah.
by the highways,
Mhm.
and I started paying attention personally, and I can hear them from my
Oh,
place,
yeah,
so I can
it
imagine
happens.
how, like, disruptive it could be, right?
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's something maybe we can look into, Anthony, and thank you. That's all, thank you.
Any other comments, questions, Councilor Poitras?
Yeah, this might be a question for administration as well. In the deputy commissioner's letter, he mentioned the use of community impact statements. Just curious if we have ever submitted one of those in the past. And I'm assuming those would go more to our MLA or MP. But yeah, just the utility of a community impact statement. Perhaps we might want to look into providing one of those. And where we would send those.
I don't have that letter in front of me to be able to answer that question. So it's a community impact statement.
Yeah, basically talking about, well, he was talking about, the issues with repeat offenders and legislation where it's, people get locked up and then they're turned right back out again. And how hearing from communities can be helpful to the lawmakers to help with that type of judicial reform. So I don't know if that's something we want to look into as a council to provide our feedback.
I'll get a hold of Crown and see what the process is for community impact, because I know they were working on a couple of years ago, they were trying to do on the repeat offenders, like a harm score for the community. So like they would get higher rated on the province's list for release, and then they're going back. Cause like I've noticed a lot of our repeat offenders are getting a lot more jail time and they're getting remanded a lot more, which is helping us with our thefts and all that type of stuff. Cause you can usually tell when they're in, because as soon as they're out, things spike.
All right, thank you.
Very good. Any other thoughts, questions? Councilor Fox?
What falls under the other provincial stats category? So it lists the Liquor Act, Cannabis Act, Mental Health Act, and then it says other provincial stats,
So
which is
that
up
would be
81%.
every other provincial legislation that's out there, like Wildlife Act, your Livestock Acts, every other act would fall under that category.
Very good. If there is no other questions, we want to thank you for coming to council tonight, Chad. And if there's any questions that we have, we'll be sure to let you know.
Thank you. I'll
And,
follow up with Crown and get an answer for the community impact statement, see how that process works.
Thank you for your for your efforts. All right, we are moving on to new business, and we have an item which is our community safety survey, and feel free to stay, Chad, if you wanted to go through this as well. But we'd like to ask our Director of Community Services, Lisa Gillingham, to present the survey to us, survey results.
Thank you and good evening, Council. In 2024, we started the community safety survey based on the prior year's perception from our residents. And so this year we did that same safety survey again. Some of the questions were the same. There were a couple that were kind of revamped a little bit to get a little bit more clarity on things. One of the noted concerns, as we talked about earlier a little bit, was the dark areas. That was noted a lot more prominently in the 2024 survey, but based on that, our Director of Operations is currently working with Fortis, and they are doing a lighting audit, and they will be looking at some of those areas that have been reported as darker areas, and looking at the options to put some additional lighting in those areas. This will, of course, come at a cost, and so it will likely be brought back to Council for decision and costing when that time comes. One thing to keep in mind that we always want to remind people is that there's both the RCMP and criminal matters that are their jurisdiction, and then there's some municipal bylaw enforcement that's the town's jurisdiction. So we leave the criminal and the RCMP jurisdictions to them, and our bylaw officer focuses on our bylaws in town. So we just want to make that delineation when we speak of community safety, that it's a community-wide responsibility, but there are certain aspects of it that the town itself can advocate for, but not actually enforce or deal with those criminal matters. And the safety survey that is attached, the summary results are there for Council. Miranda's made it very nice and comparative to 24, so you can see both the responses from the 24 survey as well as the 25 survey. One of the things that we'd like to point out is that we did have an increase of responses this year, which is always nice to know that we are getting additional feedback and increased participation in our public surveys that go out, so that's nice. And then I just wanted to highlight that our average rating is still up, and people are generally feeling safe in our community, and so that's a good thing to highlight. I don't necessarily want to go over all of the points of the survey. If Council has specific questions, I'll do my best to answer them. And we can discuss anything further if you'd like. Thank you.
Thank you very much for putting this together in the format you did. I think that really helps, especially with 2024 included in some of the stats. Does anyone from Council have questions for administration that you'd like to start with? Councillor Orr.
So just in follow-up to my previous question, so I looked at the difference, I see the difference between in question 2 and 3. How safe do you feel in your neighborhood during the day? And then 3, how safe do you feel in your neighborhood at night? And between those top 2 categories, there's about a 30% difference in how people feel. And so my question was, is this a question of perception or a question based on some kind of reality? And that's what I'm trying to find out, whether or not there is a justification for feeling unsafe at night. Clearly, that comes through, that there's a feeling of not being safe. And so that's where I was wondering whether or not any of our actual statistics of those kinds of crimes that would justify feeling safe actually line up with day and night. So I don't know whether we can look at that, because, we immediately turn to the suggestion of increased lighting as a way to help people feel safer. Whether there's any greater risk or lesser risk with the lighting or not the lighting, it may help them feel safer. And that's a consideration, but it may not be, in a sense, justified. And so I don't know whether we can actually identify things that would make people feel unsafe in our town that are based on some kind of reasoning, or whether this might be an opportunity for us to share how safe our streets actually are, and maybe deal with the perception issue. Because we know everyone's fed all sorts of, every day we can watch the news and see how dangerous the world is. And we can impute that into our community. I feel bad when people feel unsafe in our community. I'd like to address that, whether we can show them that this actually is a very safe community, or if there is a link between something that makes people unsafe, then let's try to address that. But so that's all I'm looking at. You know, increased lighting, there's going to be a cost to that. I don't know that people will feel less safe or more safe with that if we're not actually addressing crime by having more lighting. Then we're really just trying to address a perception issue. Because again, we deal with public spaces, private spaces. We can encourage private owners to light up their property to protect themselves against theft and those kinds of things, but that's not our doing. So with all of that, I'm just, is there any way we can verify this sense of a lesser safety at night than during the day? And I know your answer is probably no, we can't, but what can we do?
I won't come right out and say no, but I do believe that would be, it's a hard one to quantify, because I do believe that the perception of that and people's ability to feel safe enough to go out at night or whatever may be impeded by a dark area or whatever. Can I guarantee that you add a light and more people are going to start walking out at night? I don't know. I agree that it is likely a high perception piece and that people just feel safer in better and more well-lit spaces. We could try and find a question to quantify it a little bit better. It would take a little bit of research. Surveys, we're careful in the questions that we ask in surveys because we need the responses to be somewhat tangible, that we can either take action on or not, or try to gather that information. So I appreciate the question, and we could certainly look into a better way to ask a little bit more specifics on that lighting and perception piece and about the crime itself. And sorry, I don't have a much more definitive answer than that.
I expect that the greatest fear people have is I'm going to get mugged. And I would be curious if we've ever had a mugging in Fort Macleod. And yet that would be the fear that most people think about. Maybe we just emphasize that, no, we do have a safe community. And maybe that perception or that fear might lessen if people are just made a little more aware of what's going on. And if we do go with lighting, I'd ask if we're looking into motion censored lighting.
In the 4 years that I've been here, there's no mugging that I'm aware of. Like, it's a difficult question because maybe the people that don't feel safe, they're victims of crime in the past, or it's a visibility thing for us in the evenings. Like, there's so many tangibles, like you said, in that area to be able to pinpoint to what it is. Because we can patrol so much, but if you have one guy on, I can leave. I've done it before. I've left a street and there's a break-in 2 streets over and during a patrol, and it's like, well, I was just there.
Yeah, and I would dare guess that the rate of crime is a lot higher at nights than during the days, correct? Like people are
Yeah, that's correct. 'Cause,
wandering around checking doors and locks
yeah,
during
usually people are out under the darkness of night because there's less chance
Yeah.
of being caught and people are in bed. So that's when they're out looking for things.
So if 80% of our criminal activity happens at night, I can see why people are feeling less safe at nights. You see things, you hear things, and there's a lot of stuff that goes on that really you have next to no control over. Besides having a cop at every corner, which is unreasonable as well. So I think someone over here, Councillor Monteith.
The other thing is, everyone has a different definition of what's safe. So some person might have a very low tolerance, another very high tolerance. So I don't know how you measure it between people.
And for example, most kids are scared of the dark, so automatically you're grown up with some fear of the dark, right? So I think there's a bit of a natural tendency as well, because the darkness scares kids. So a lot of them experience that when they grow up. So yeah, it's not to discredit that we need to make sure our community's safe. by any stretch. If we know there's tangible things we can do, then let's do them. But in the survey, I don't think we've noticed anything besides the lighting, but I think a lot of it is community interactions too. If you're seeing something, who do you talk to about it instead of putting it on Facebook? Like there could be more community groups that we need to encourage. So if someone sees something, they're all looking out rather than those things have been known to really help with improving communication and awareness. But I don't think neighborhood watches have really been established that well in the form of cloud, but not, yeah, besides Citizens on Patrol. Anything else, Councillor Orr?
Not on that part of it. I had a question about question 13, which speaks to bylaw-related issues. And I really enjoyed the information that was obtained there. And I wondered, that's a perception that individuals have, things that concern them that are bylaw-related. And I'm just wondering if we might have a very specific approach to addressing at least those top 4 concerns that are very identifiable. Maybe we look at that every 6 months. We are able to provide a public report in a sense on what we've been doing on those issues. Again, I think those are very addressable type issues, and we could communicate to our public what we're doing. And as long as we make that a priority for our bylaw officer, then I can see that we've looked at the survey, we've got feedback, and we've tried to address that as best we can.
I will endeavor to get stats on my quarterly reports regarding his monthly activities, especially on those 4. He has started using a software program that breaks it down a little bit easier and more digestible, so I'll start focusing on adding that to my community report for quarterlies.
One of them, I found the questions were quite revealing too with, I think it was question 10. The year-over-year difference was pretty extreme. But I don't know if that's just theft in 24 went from 29 to in 25 being 57, but drug activity went from 15 last year to 93 this year. I'm not.
Of course, I can't say who answered it last year versus who answered it this year, and that might be a question that we add to our next surveys that have you filled this out previously in the previous year. So because different, of course, demographics, different locations in town, depending on where you live versus, there's lots of different reasons I can see why those answers would vary. I can't specifically speak to people's responses, but it is interesting how it can change by that much in 1 year. And with it only being 2 years, we only do have the 2 to compare. So it'll be interesting to see as we continue doing this, if the trends kind of stick or if you see them fluctuate every year.
Yeah, even repeat offenders went from 2 concerns to almost 50. It was like, that's a big jump. So either there's more awareness, more people talking about it, or, yeah. Brenda?
Just to note that in 2024, it was just an open-ended blank answer.
Okay,
And so we just tallied those items manually, and this time I had just given out some, I kind of found all the items and just gave responses so that it was more clear. Because we were finding that there was lots of, in the blank answers, there was, I don't know if we put it down in the bylaw section, there was a lot of comments that were not related to anything particular to safety at all, so just to deter some of that.
Stats probably aren't helpful till next year then, really, just to see if they're,
It was a little bit different format just for consideration.
No, very good. All right, well, thank you for all of that discussion. Any other last minute questions on the survey, Councillor Patience?
Yeah, not so much a question, but the issue of street lighting and having an audit done by Fortis is a good idea. I can say for sure in my experience, numerous occasions where streets have been underlit, that people have a great reluctance to walk down there in the evening, and that gives the people on those areas an uncomfortability as well. So it is a fairly simple solution to maybe problems or challenges we don't even know of at this point, but I would say that I think that would be a very good start.
Councillor Orr has a
Could I
follow-up?
could I just mention though that that simple solution is also up against a cost. And we're up against a cost dealing with perhaps a mere perception. There are lots of big communities where they don't have much lighting at all for specific reasons. And I'm curious as to whether or not there's rampant crime happening in those centers. And I appreciate the connection between lighting and a sense of safety. But we have to measure it against the cost of doing so. I don't know what it costs to put up each light pole and then to pay for that as we go. So
Yeah,
that'll be
for
something
sure.
that we'll look at when the audit comes.
Something, yeah, very good. Any other last minute thoughts, questions, comments? If not, a motion to accept the survey results as presented. Councillor Poitras makes a motion. There is no further discussion on the motion. We'll call it the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you, everyone. And then our second new business item, Town of Tabor. Yeah, so this was an invite by the mayor of Tabor to a game of street hockey. I believe it's their street hockey tournament weekend as a fundraiser for the rebuild project. And the question was raised, maybe Councillor Orr wants to speak to it. If Town of Fort McLeod's interested in contributing to the cause or participating. So, Councillor Orr.
I just was looking to see whether or not council had an appetite to have someone go and represent us there. I know that Councillor Poitras has honed his hockey skills over many years, and he may be a better representative than I, but I thought I would be willing to go if we thought getting our name mentioned in that environment would be a positive thing for community relations. And so that was all, as I would put that forward, is I would be willing to attend that one, hopefully not too long of a game. Wear one of our jerseys, they're asking for that, one, local team jersey, we could maybe get our hands on that. But and then if that is an appetite for council, I'd be willing to go on my own dime as far as time-wise, but perhaps if I can take the town vehicle. But again, I certainly don't need to go, but if it's, council feels like it's something that we would like to have our name mentioned in that forum with that number of people, then I'd consider it.
Yeah, very good. I'm not sure. I've not heard of the tournament before. I think this may be the first time they're inviting other mayors. I'm not completely sure, but yeah. Any other comments, questions on that? Councillor Poitras, your name was mentioned.
Nowadays, I'm more skilled at getting penalties than scoring goals. But yeah, no, yeah, it sounds like a fun event. That is the day of our Empress Grand reopening. So my schedule might be a little tight that afternoon, but I'll look into it and see if I can't make some arrangements. And I'll get back to you, Miranda.
So I don't think council would be opposed to someone going, right? I think I don't know that they're asking for a donation either specifically. I think the tournament itself is a fundraiser. I think it's more in the spirit of cheer.
Sorry, I was just pulling up some information because I also got an invite to our teams through the Minor Hockey Association. And so It is a fundraising event, and so I'm assuming that team registration fees go towards, and it says all proceeds from this event will be used to repair or improve the Tabor Community Center. So there's an invite to all of the associations kind of across the area to put some teams in and participate in that. But it does say, like, donations, of course, will be accepted, but I don't think that it's a requirement of attending. In the letter as well that was addressed to council, I don't see that. On the note of being able to get a jersey, I did already reach out to the hockey board, and they have no opposition to a town councillor wearing one of our Fort Macleod Maverick jerseys, and I can make that available.
Okay, so I think this is more or less information only, unless we need a motion of council for something. Is there a recommended motion, Councillor Orr, or you?
Well, the only question I would have is, is there, for example, if I were to go, can I use the town vehicle, or is there, I don't know that needs a motion.
I mean, I suppose we'd have to check the calendar, but yes, if
Yeah,
it's available.
Okay, we can do that. Then that's fine.
Okay. So information only at this time. Do we need a motion for information? No, we should be good. So I believe that concludes the public portion of our meeting. We will move on to an in-camera session, of which we have 3 items, 2 land and 1 personnel. So I would request a motion from council go in camera for those 3 items. Councillor Fox makes the motion. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried.